This is the Detroit Sports Podcast Network.
Welcome to the Monday Mashup on Detroit Sports Podcast Network. I am your host, Shea Norling. Back after a week off. A week ago I went, and as everybody at this point is aware, the Patriots fan in me went to Pittsburgh to check out Patriots versus Steelers. I was in attendance. I had my heart ripped out. Just a really, really bad performance by the Patriots in that game. Committed 14 penalties. It honestly was not an enjoyable experience, but I have to say I was nervous going into Pittsburgh because I'd heard all those stories, right? Like, there was the report of the guy that choked out a pregnant woman who was wearing a Chargers jersey. There were all these reports of all these fights that had happened at Heinz Field. I went there and I had a wonderful experience. And I guess it might be a luck thing. I've been to Buffalo. I had a great experience in Buffalo. I've been to Gillette. I've had a great experience there in Foxborough, obviously. Went to Pittsburgh then and really just had a great experience. I had a lot of fun with the Steelers fans around me. It's a beautiful stadium with a beautiful view. If you ever have a chance, if you've never been to a Steelers game, I highly, highly recommend it. It was especially where I was sitting, and I was in the cheap seats, so that may play a part because it's like the baseball thing I really highly believe in. That when you sit in the bleachers, when you sit in the grandstand and the cheap seats, you're sitting with the real fans. You're sitting with the people that are like, that understand the game and understand the teams that are playing. And so I think I had a really good time with the people around me, and just a really positive experience, which again, I was a little nervous. But getting into what I want to talk about today, a ton to do. I have thoughts on Matt Patricia and why he is just not the man for the job. I have my NFL playoff predictions. Everybody's going to call them homerisms, but I'm just going to tell you how I feel, and I could give a shit, to be honest, if I'm right or wrong or otherwise. This is how I feel. And I'm shooting it straight, and I'm looking at it. I did my best to look at it objectively, unbiased, and give you how I feel about these football teams. After that, the final thing I want to do is the NBA Power Rankings. I'm going to do it every week. I did it 2 weeks ago. Obviously, I didn't do the show last week, so there wasn't one a week ago. But I'm doing NBA Power Rankings every week. Night in, night out, it is the highest level of entertainment available in sports. Period. Put a bullet in it. That's it. There is no league, no sport, nothing that trumps the entertainment value the NBA provides on a night-by-night basis. I know a lot of people, especially in Detroit, not a huge basketball town, not a huge NBA town, but I'm telling you, if you're not into the NBA now is the time to get into it, because it's growing. It is astronomically fast, the way it's growing, and it just provides... I'll get into it in a little bit. Where I want to start with, though, is the biggest news, arguably, in the world of NFL football over the past week, and it comes out of Patriot camp. And I think most everybody that has paid any attention knows where I'm going, and it is Josh Gordon. And my feelings on it are honestly really pretty concise. There are moments where you're reminded that these guys, despite the fact that they're world-class athletes, despite the fact that they are paid millions of dollars to play a game, they are people too. They have lives of their own. They have struggles and demons the same as anyone. And no one in the world knows the demons that anyone is fighting on the inside. You know, you walk past someone on the street, you have no clue what that person is going through. No idea. Everybody is fighting a battle, and nobody knows anything about it for the most part. And that's how it seems like it went with Josh Gordon. Patriots players have been incredibly supportive of him. Julian Edelman made his profile picture, Josh Gordon's jersey, on Instagram. Tom Brady came to the game today, as I'm recording this on Sunday, of course, but he showed up to the game in the outfit that Josh Gordon wore to his first game as a Patriot. I mean, the players have just social media. They've been public about how good of a guy Josh Gordon is. And I think especially when you look at Tom Brady, that really speaks to it. Because Tom Brady's a guy who traditionally, you have a receiver come in and it takes a while to build a rapport. Unless it's Randy Moss, it takes a while. Like, it took a while for Brady to trust Chris Hogan. It took a while for Brady to trust Danny Amendola. And those things developed. Josh Gordon was trusted immediately when he showed up. And the way that Brady speaks about him now, it just speaks, I think, to the character of the man that Josh Gordon is. One of my favorite Tom Brady quotes that really explains just how little patience he has with players. It came in, I think, OTAs, and it was Rob Gronkowski 1 year after his rookie year, and he ran a route, he ran a play not quite the way Brady wanted him to. The quote from Brady was, "If you don't do it how I tell you, I'm not throwing you the fucking ball." That's the kind of guy Brady is. So when Brady comes out and gives these glowing endorsements of Josh Gordon and how much he loved and trusted him on the field, it speaks a lot to who Josh Gordon is, the man. And so I think it's one of those times where we remember life is more important than football. Sorry about not turning my phone off, but life is more important than football. It's a moment where we remember that. And it's a moment that I think it's important to take a look and say, yeah, getting right with your mind and with yourself is more important than scoring touchdowns. It's more important than taking the Patriots to the Super Bowl. It's more important than winning a playoff game. It's more important than being a football player. Like, this guy struggles with addiction, with a disease that is incredibly harmful to people on an everyday basis. It hits home for a lot of people. And I think it is just one of those moments where you have to step back and go, I hope the best for him. I hope he can figure his stuff out. And if it means not playing football, maybe that is what's best for him. And nobody knows that. But my thoughts on Josh Gordon are simple. I hope for the best. I hope that he finds the help he needs, and I wish him all the luck in the world, because every encounter anyone's ever had, he is just a stand-up guy. Those are my thoughts on Josh Gordon. I have thoughts on a couple other things directly related to Josh Gordon. One, the NFL's substance abuse policy is bullshit. Now, I know that the tests came back and they said it was not for marijuana. If he got suspended for alcohol, that is an absolute joke. If he got suspended for Adderall, that is an absolute joke. Same thing with Xanax. The dude grew up with social anxiety. Maybe he actually needs it. It's a joke. Now, I know that you can abuse these things, but Josh Gordon, throughout his career, has been honest, forthright, and self-seeking as far as getting help goes. He's been honest about his struggles. He has been forthright about the things that happened, admitting to fathering that girl in Cleveland. He came out and had a few instances where he really opened up and got deep about his struggles with addiction and his past. And he's a guy who just struggled his entire life. And the NFL, it just has the dumbest rules for a league that more or less gave players prescription heroin to deal with pain, for a league that systematically hid concussions from guys. I mean, the way that they act when it comes to marijuana, and if you ask somebody like a Pat McAfee, it's targeted. They go after certain guys. The tests are quote-unquote random, but they don't feel like it to these certain players. And I'm sure Josh Gordon's a member of that. And a part of it is he had so many prior instances of breaking the league's substance abuse policy. And I understand that. And so he should be on a little bit of a leash, and it should be what's best for him. If that means not playing football, that's great. But the way the NFL handles these situations with just doling out the suspension, to me, is garbage. Because it kind of negates the whole Josh Gordon the man is more important than Josh Gordon the football player. And I have no patience for it. The other thing that pissed me off about this was Stephen A. Smith went on television and gave an absolutely appalling take. Now, I had the audio. I was going to play it, but I don't want to, because when you listen to it, it's disgusting. The way that he talked about Josh Gordon is absolutely gross. I can just go through and get a couple lines. Right at the beginning, he said, "I don't know any other way to put this, and I'd like to apologize to everybody on this show ahead of time." This is on first take. If you got to start your take with, "I'd like to apologize to everyone on this show ahead of time," maybe just stop. Maybe just don't say what you were about to say. But instead, he said, "I'm pissed. I'm just going to say it. I'm disgusted. I'm sick and tired of this guy getting chances. Already in a bad spot. Saying that because this guy struggles with mental health, he's been honest, forthright, self-seeking in getting help, he does not deserve second chances. Stephen A. Smith went on to talk about how he was about to get suspended, how the Browns let him go for doing the same thing, how Tom Brady and Bill Belichick raved about him and put him in this great situation, but he threw it away anyway. Then Stephen A. Smith sat here and delivered, we can sit up there and say he's an addict, and if you want to sit up there and look at it from that perspective, I understand those who call for a degree and a level of compassion. Okay, Stephen A., you kind of walked yourself back a little bit. Maybe now you can end it and move on to whatever the dumbass topic you're discussing on First Take is. Like, is LeBron's hairline the reason why he can't be an MVP candidate? Is LeBron's hairline make him not an alpha male? Whatever stupid ass topic this show has. But no. He went on. He said, but what I would ask for people, think for 1 second. We know what he's done to himself. But the other thing is, look at the amount of people this man has turned down. I don't think he's turned anyone down. I think he's dealing with issues he has zero control over. I'll get into it a little more in a minute. Stephen A. said, I don't want to say anything else. Thank God. But, he continued, because I'm so disgusted at such wasted talent. One, stop using the word disgusted, because that's bullshit. To call out somebody who struggles with mental health and say that you are disgusted by it. Dude, stop. If ESPN had any integrity, they would get this guy off that show. They would get this guy off TV after delivering a take as dangerous as that. He continued to go on offering things along the lines of addiction starts with a choice and blaming Josh Gordon. I don't think Stephen A. knows anything about Josh Gordon other than the fact that he has severely struggled with addiction in his time in the NFL. I don't think Stephen A. knows a damn thing about this guy. And it pisses me off that people have that much of a platform in media and can deliver that abhorrent of a take, especially when he then doubled down on it. It is bullshit. If ESPN had any balls, they would tell Stephen A. he's done for a week. You can't say that. You can't get on air and call addiction a choice. You can't get on air and say you're disgusted because Josh Gordon is stepping away from football. By the way, Stephen A. directly quoted stepping away sarcastically. You can't do that. This is a guy who's making the best decision for himself. Stephen A., you can't do that. You can't deliver a take that calls it a choice. You can't blame him. Because, you know, if you knew anything about his upbringing, you would know that Josh Gordon was, quote-unquote, raised by crack addicts. He was born into a family of drug abuse. Because he had parents who couldn't protect him, he had to join a gang just to protect himself. At the age of 13. At the age of 15, that very gang exposed him to drugs and alcohol. He has always struggled with social anxiety, hence the Xanax, his entire life. Drugs and alcohol became a coping mechanism for him. Football became a coping mechanism for him. Unfortunately, the demons that lie in drugs and alcohol and addiction got to him first. Took more of him. It's a tragic and sad story. It's not disgusting. You're disgusting, Stephen A., for saying something like that. You're disgusting. Not Josh Gordon. Josh Gordon is a tragic story, and I feel just absolutely horrible for him. It sucks that he goes through this, that he battles with this, but it's incredibly impressive that he has the self-awareness to come out and say, I need to get help. I need to step away from the game that I love and get help. Anybody that thinks otherwise, honestly, I got no time for you. I don't. None. If you want to shame Josh Gordon, you know, I saw some absolutely horrifying things on Twitter that I don't want to get into. But if you feel anything but sadness for Josh Gordon, I got no time for you. I think it's an incredibly sad story, and I think it's incredibly irresponsible by ESPN to let Stephen A. get on First Take and say something like that. There's no other way around it to me. I mean, that's really all I got to say on this. I don't want to drone on it too long because it is sad and it is heavy. And the NFL is not supposed to be sad and heavy. It's supposed to be fun, right? Sundays are entertaining. We get around the TV, we watch entertaining football. And today was absolutely chock full of entertaining football. Matt Patricia if I'm changing gears a little bit, is a stupid, stupid guy. Just making terrible, terrible decisions. The Lions today, at one point, down 17-9 at home in a game where they never looked like they were even close to awake. Matthew Stafford played horrible. The defense, to Patricia's credit, still looks better. But again, you are playing an offense that has Kirk Cousins, who can't perform in big games, and just generally does not look good, despite all of their talent. And so the problem with why I have such an issue with Matt Patricia, you've been eliminated from the playoffs since last week. You have nothing to play for but draft position. Why in the hell do you have your quarterback, Matthew Stafford, taking the field down 17-9? Now, admittedly, I was watching Red Zone, so I missed a little bit. I saw Matt Castle come in. It was 24-9. I'm not sure if Stafford was ever in at that score, but I know Stafford was in at 17-9. It's abysmal. There's no reason that Matthew Stafford should step on that football field. None. At any point today. And they rode with him the whole way. Now, I also have a fear with Matt Patricia, because I think any coach with balls, and maybe not, because the replacement for Jim Bob Cooter may not be good. There may be a situation where whoever you would bring in as interim OC would be an absolute disaster. But I do have a fear that Jim Bob Cooter is playing with handcuffs, that he's calling the game Matt Patricia wants him to call. Now, I know Patricia's a defensive coach, but I think we're looking at a situation similar to what's going on in East Lansing, where we have an offensive coordinator in Dave Warner, who I don't think is any good, but I also think is playing with handcuffs, because he's calling the game D'Antonio wants him to. You look at the times where D'Antonio said, forget it, you handle the offense, I got nothing to do with it. It did happen a few times. It's happened in the past, and the offense always looks better. As soon as that happens, the offense looks better. When D'Antonio in 2013 would step out of the way of the defense and go, Nardog, take it over, and D'Antonio would have nothing to do with it, and he'd just let Narduzzi call the plays. He'd let Narduzzi run the defense. Nardog's coming down from the press box, comes down on the sideline and takes over the defense. It's all his. That's the best defense in America. I think we're looking at a situation in Detroit that might be very similar, where Matt Patricia, not so much on the defensive side, but definitely on the offensive side, just get out of the way and let these guys do what they do. Now, my hope is that Jim Bob Cooter just isn't very good, which I think might be a combination of both. But my fear is we get Jim Bob Cooter out of here at the end of the season, Matt Patricia brings in his guy, and it's no different, because his guy is still going to be calling the game Patricia wants him to call. Now, if I'm Jim Bob Cooter, I would start calling the offense in a way that you can explain in job interviews. Right now, I don't think he's doing that. I would say to hell with Patricia, and I would call the offense in a way that you can explain in job interviews. So maybe he is just bad, but I'm getting worried that it's more than that. I'm getting worried that Patricia has him in handcuffs. I'm getting worried that the conservative style of play that Patricia has always played on defense, sit back in his zone, don't get too aggressive, we're going to play kind of cushy, bend but don't break style, that's transferred over to the offense. That conservative style has transferred over to Jim Bob Cooter. Because I got to be honest, Jim Bob Cooter's play calling this season has been more conservative than it had ever been under Jim Caldwell. And there's already been a ton of talk about the players looked more ready to play. They looked more bought into football when Jim Caldwell was around than they have with Matt Patricia. I think there's truth to that as well. I think it might be a case where everybody's playing with handcuffs. And that scares the hell out of me, because it doesn't say to me that there's going to be any improvement. I don't know that there's going to be improvement next year. I truly don't think Matt Patricia's the guy. I think he looks lost as a head coach. I think he's another in a long list of failures to come out of New England. You look at what Josh McDaniels did in Denver, fired. You look at Bill O'Brien, he's had minor successes in Houston, but he can't beat Belichick. He can't win in the playoffs. I mean, you just go down the list. There is no guy who has come out of Belichick's coaching tree and taken a head coaching job and done well. There just isn't. Because as much as guys come out of there and try to copy-paste the New England system, it's again just proof the system is Tom Brady. I think Colin Cowherd said it the other day. The triangle has only ever worked with Michael Jordan in his prime and with Kobe in his prime. They are the triangle offense. The triangle offense did not make Jordan and Kobe. They made the triangle. The system that's run in New England didn't make Brady. Brady made the system. So when the coaches leave and they go somewhere else and they don't have Tom Brady, because let's face it, Matt Stafford's not Tom Brady, the system fails. It's failed every time. Josh McDaniels in Denver didn't work. He didn't have Tom Brady. It's always the same situation. Tom Brady is the system. And so I have no confidence at this point that Matt Patricia is going to be able to bring this team back to a playoff caliber team. I don't know that he's ever going to have the wins that Jim Caldwell had here. And as much as we hated Jim Caldwell, I got to tell you, I'm starting to wish we still had him, because I think I'd take Jim Caldwell over what we've gotten out of Matt Patricia. You look at a roster that had very, very, very high turnover season to season. It's a team that went 9-7 a year ago. Team that didn't lose their quarterback, didn't lose weapons on offense. If anything, got better on offense because you gained a Kerryon Johnson. You gained a decent offensive line. Through 8 weeks, it was the best offensive line in football. You improved your team, and yet Matthew Stafford has been outdueled by rookie quarterbacks not once but twice. You have a 9-7 team turning in a 5-10 spot. They're going to be 5-11. Because for whatever reason, the Packers, despite their playoff elimination, are still playing hero ball with Aaron Rodgers. I don't get it. Why don't you shut him down the way the Lions should shut Matthew Stafford down? It's the same situation to me. I got no confidence that this guy is the guy. And I did before the season. I'll admit it. You've heard it. You heard me. I predicted them to win the North. It was the other team that never wins the North that won the North. The Bears. Matt Nagy, a real head coach, won the North. Matt Patricia shows no creativity, shows no ingenuity. For a rocket scientist, he sure has trouble understanding timeouts and game situations at times. I got no faith. None. And I'll be honest, I'm not upset. I think we're at a point where, thank God they're losing, because this is what they're supposed to be doing, and it's difficult to get angry about it. But I'm just saying, going into next season, going into the draft, look, Bob Quinn, for the most part, until this last draft, has not been great. You know, getting Damon Harrison was huge, and I loved it. Getting rid of Golden Tate for a third-round pick, also huge, because you effectively swapped Golden Tate in a fifth for Damon Harrison in a third. It's a good move, especially when you were 3-4. But I just got no faith. I got no faith in Matt Stafford, and the apologists, I don't care what you have to say. I got no faith in this guy. You go, well, what if he had weapons? Well, he did. He had 7 games of Golden Tate, 3-4. You know, he had 4.5 years of Eric Ebron, 4 years, whatever it was, of Eric Ebron. Now Eric Ebron's in Indy with a real quarterback, and he's got 15 touchdowns. Like, what are we talking about? Why are we defending Stafford so much? I got no faith in Stafford to win anything. I got no faith in Patricia to win anything. I got no faith in the ownership to win anything. I have no faith in this organization, period. I don't know why, like, we get excited for tanking for the draft, and then they're going to go and fuck up the draft. They are horrible. They do horrible by fans. They have no interest in creating a winning product. So I'm just, that's where I'm at with the Lions today. Maybe you feel differently, and that's great, and I applaud your optimism. But I can't find it in me to have faith. I can't. I want to so badly, but I can't. All right, I want to talk a little bit about real football. I'm going to break down each round of the playoffs. I'm going to tell you how I feel, what I think is going to happen, and why. And we'll see. If you want, you can shoot me a message on Twitter at Norling Shea or at Detroit Podcast, whatever. Let me know if I'm totally off or if you totally agree. Either way. But I kind of ran through ESPN's playoff machine for next week and figured out what I was looking at. After the Steelers lost to the Saints, that changed everything to me. I have the Chiefs losing to the Seahawks, so we'll see how that game plays out as well. But anyway, my AFC wild card, I've got Colts traveling to Houston to play the Texans. I don't know how to feel about Houston, because Houston's a team that, to me, hasn't played a ton of difficult teams. They've gone on this stretch where they've won a ton of games, no matter who you're playing in the National Football League. That is impressive. I think they've won, 9 out of 11, 9 out of 10. That's impressive. And they had a bad loss today in Philadelphia, but again, Deshaun Watson played an incredible football game. I mean, he was amazing. It was just Nick Foles working his magic was better. And so that's the way that played out. And that's, to me, good sign going into the playoffs that Deshaun is playing this level of football. You know, you have an all-time receiver in DeAndre Hopkins. Deshaun Watson today, with damn near every receiver out, went off. You have a defense that's really good. But again, I haven't seen them play high-level talent, and especially play high-level talent well. I haven't seen them beat a good team. So that's one of the issues I have with that team. And again, you look at the Colts already went to Houston and won that game. Just a few weeks ago, they waltzed into Houston and won 24-21. And then they blanked the Cowboys. And then they came back against the Giants today with Eli Manning playing hero ball. The Colts are hot. And I think that people are going to point to that game in Jacksonville, the 6-0 game that the Colts lost, and go, that's not the Colts. That's an anomaly. The Colts are the team that has Andrew Luck playing at an MVP caliber, that has one of the best offensive lines in football, with Quentin Nelson leading the charge. You know, Andrew Luck is making T.Y. Hilton into an all-pro type receiver again. They are playing really well. And by the way, for the first time ever in recent memory, they have a decent defense too. I look at this Colts team. If I'm an AFC team, the Colts scare me more than any team in football. They just they are very much complete. Maybe more complete than any team in the AFC other than the Chargers. You know, you look at the Chiefs. The Chiefs have holes. The Chiefs have a ton of flaws. You look at the Texans. I have struggles with their consistency, and I've struggled with, you know, again, they haven't beaten anybody good. They've torn up a lot of pretty bad teams. But for the first time in like my living memory, the Colts have a top 10 defense. They have an MVP caliber quarterback again. They have T.Y. Hilton playing all-pro caliber wide receiver again. They are a scary team, and for that reason, they're going to waltz into Houston. They're going to beat them in a playoff game. The other AFC wildcard, Chargers at Ravens. Very concise on this one. Chargers are going to Baltimore and winning. Phillip Rivers got to be pissed after that Saturday loss at home against the Ravens. Again, you're coming off that win over the Chiefs where you had last-minute heroics at the toughest stadium there is, and then again in a primetime game, and then you turn around and play on a Saturday against the Ravens with one of the best defenses in football, and they still had a chance to win that game. I look at the Chargers; they're going on the road to Baltimore in a playoff game. I think Phillip Rivers gets his revenge game. NFC wildcard, Seahawks at Cowboys. I'm taking the Seahawks. I'm taking Russell Wilson. I love what they're doing. I thought this was a team that was going to be in the range of like 4 or 5 wins in the cellar of the NFC West. Instead, they are marching right into the playoffs. And honestly, I think they beat the Chiefs tonight. I think that they go into Dallas and they get a win over a team that, despite having a really good defense, feels like they're backing into the playoffs. I know they won the NFC East. That doesn't say a lot. That division sucks. And so I think the Seahawks go into Dallas and get that win. Eagles at Bears. I do have Eagles at Bears. I struggle with this, but it doesn't really matter because it's either going to be Eagles at Bears or Vikings at Bears. Whichever one it is, I'm picking the Bears. I don't see anybody going into Soldier Field in January and beating that team. One of the only teams that's top 10 in both offense and defense. And that defense is really good. And you can thank John Gruden for it. He made the Bears by giving him Khalil Mack. Do you think the Bears missed those 2 first-round picks? No, sir. Khalil Mack has overcome those 2 first-round picks to an insane degree. There's no way that the Eagles or the Vikings get into the playoffs. And the Eagles maybe a little more than the Vikings because they're so hot right now with Nick Foles at the helm. Like, this guy has brought them back to life. The win over the Rams, obviously. Then the comeback win today against fending off the comeback against Houston. The Eagles look good again. But that Bears team, that Bears defense in bear weather is built for the playoffs. And they scare me. They have a shot to go deep. Then I look at the AFC divisional. All right, we're into the next round. We got Colts at Chiefs. This is a little... People might disagree with me on this one, but I got the Colts winning. Again, Andrew Luck playing MVP caliber football. He's shown that he can win on the road. He went into Houston and did it. And we're talking about a Chiefs team that has no defense, especially against the pass. Whenever you get a guy who's playing MVP-style quarterback going up against a team with zero passing defense, we're looking at trouble. The Chiefs haven't looked the same since they lost Kareem Hunt. Their scoring average is down. Their defense is bad. Their run game is bad to begin with, specifically on the ground. They turn their running backs into excellent pass catchers, but on the ground, it's weak. And so, again, the Colts, top 10 in defense, top 10 in offense. They have an MVP quarterback. They have T.Y. Hilton. They're playing really good football. Colts win. Next one up, Chargers at Patriots. This one might have a lot to do with shit that has nothing to do with this year, but it is like, can I see Phillip Rivers going into Gillette in January, in Foxborough, in January, and beating Tom Brady and the Patriots? You look at the numbers. There's been a lot said about Tom Brady's age. You look at the numbers. He's having as good a season as he had a year ago. You look at 11 interceptions. People go, that's the first time he's had double-digit interceptions since 2013. That's got to mean something. One, it means they're relying on the run a lot more, and he's having a harder time getting in rhythm, but his numbers are still very good. Two, 6 of his 11 interceptions have touched the receiver's hands first. It's a talent issue surrounding Brady. It's not a Brady issue. But today they did something that really impressed me. They went up against the number 1 defense in the league in Buffalo. I know, fact check it. That sounds shocking, but it's a fact. They went up against the number 1 defense in the league in Buffalo, and they ran the football down their throat. This is a Patriots team that everybody immediately was out on when they lost Josh Gordon. This is a Patriots team that, to me, now has an identity. They have just entered the top 10 in scoring defense. Their defense has really tightened up this month. You know, even in Pittsburgh, that's a really tough environment to play offense. I was there. It was louder than hell. But their defense didn't allow a touchdown in the final 3 quarters of that game. They might have got torched on the ground, but they didn't allow the Steelers to get into the end zone. And that's a Steelers team that walked into New Orleans today and hung 28. Antonio Brown had 3 touchdowns. And that's a Steelers team that's really good on offense. They couldn't score in a whorehouse at home against the Patriots. So I'm taking the Patriots over the Chargers on the back of that defense and on the back of that running game. I think the Patriots offense, for the first time in 2018, has an identity. They are going to take that football and they are going to ram it down your throat. And it worked. Sony Michel over 100 yards today. Ton of opportunities. Rex Burkhead might play his way out of carries, but I think that's okay because the Patriots running game with James White and Sony Michel has a ton of rhythm. And their offensive line played way up to snuff. Trent Brown's been bad at left tackle this year, but man, David Andrews was just committing war crimes basically in the trenches. I mean, they were opening up holes like it was nobody's business. That offensive line playing like that on a ground attack against the number 1 defense in football, I like that. That's what I like to see. And so I have a lot of confidence for the Patriots going in. And I didn't have it before, but the other thing that weighs in really heavy to this is that Texans loss today put the Patriots back in the 2 seed. If the Patriots have a bye week, there's no stopping them. Patriots have a bye week, they're going to the AFC Championship. It's on the schedule. They've been there every year since 2010. Whenever they have a bye week, they go to the AFC Championship. It's basically written in stone. On to the NFC Divisional. Seahawks, Saints. Saints win. And I'm just going to keep it really easy with this. There's not a team in the world that can walk into the Superdome and beat the Saints in the playoff game. There's not one. It was so loud at the end of Saints-Steelers today, Ben Roethlisberger couldn't hear the headset inside of his helmet. Nobody's going to New Orleans and beating the Saints. That's it. Bears at Rams. Bears. That defense. Look, this is a Rams team that looks worse. And I don't know what happened, if they got worn out, if they peaked early, whatever it might be. But a couple weeks ago, Michael Lombardi said this a couple days ago, the Rams were running like 46% of their plays were play action up until the Detroit game. Since then, it's like 26%. Jared Goff's completion rating all the way down to about 55. I'm not going to take a ton out of them beating the hell out of the Cardinals because the Cardinals might be the worst team in football. But you look at what's happened to Jared Goff's completion percentage and quarterback rating since they went away from play action. And another thing Michael Lombardi said, look, the Lions and Matt Patricia kind of provided a blueprint on defense to stop the Rams. The Bears have the talent to really stop the Rams. Also, the Rams defense is not good. We thought secondary would be their strength. It's been one of their weaknesses. We thought they would have Ndamukong Suh and Aaron Donald clog the rush. Been a weakness. They are bad against the run, and they allow a lot of completions in the secondary. I got questions about the Rams. I don't have a ton of questions about the Bears. The only question I have about the Bears is Mitch Trubisky, and can he have enough ball control to get them over the hump? I think the defense kind of takes care of that for him. And that's a Bears win over the Rams in the NFC Divisional. AFC Championship, Colts at Patriots. Guys, we've seen this movie before. How many times? How many times does Andrew Luck have to walk into Foxborough and get blown out before we realize Andrew Luck can't beat this team? Whatever it is about the Colts, they can't beat the Patriots. We saw it on Thursday Night Football in Gillette. We saw it in the AFC Championship game in 2014. We saw it in the AFC Championship game in 20 whatever, or in AFC Divisional. Andrew Luck can't beat the Patriots. It's his kryptonite. Maybe this year's different. I don't see it going that way. Patriots are the only team in the NFL that's undefeated at home. That bye week is huge for Tom Brady. I don't care if he says he's 100%. I don't care if he says he's not hurt. Dude, his knee doesn't look right. He doesn't look right moving in the pocket. Some of his throws don't look right. That bye week is going to be huge. And who's betting against the Patriots in an AFC Championship game, especially against the Colts? Give me the Pats. I might be crazy. Everybody's ready to pronounce them dead. I won't call the Patriots dead until they're dead. They have to be in the coffin, nailed shut, all of it. Then they're dead. Until then, I'm not going there. NFC Championship, Bears at Saints, same thing, guy. Look, Drew Brees is going to win MVP. It's either him or Pat Mahomes, and I think it's going to be Drew Brees. And you look at the Bears with Mitch Trubisky, with a young team, with a tenacious defense going into the Superdome. Do they have it? They have a really creative young head coach in Matt Nagy. Can they take this Saints team down? I think the Saints peaked early. I don't think they're a perfect team, but I also don't think anybody is going to the Superdome and beating them. I just don't. I think it's one of the biggest home field advantages in football, despite what happened week 1 with Tampa Bay. I don't see anyone going in there and beating them, and they clinched the 1 seed today. Super Bowl goes through New Orleans, and I think that means New Orleans goes to the Super Bowl. And then obviously the Super Bowl, Patriots and Saints. This is, to me, it's as much as my heart wants to pick what I want to pick, it's the Saints. They're just a better team. And I don't even think the Patriots are the best team in the AFC. I think that they're getting extremely fortunate with the way that the playoff picture is shaping up. The fact they're not going to run into a Pittsburgh. The fact that I don't think they're going to see the Ravens. The fact that I think they're going to get a Chargers team that a couple nights ago, or last night rather, looked bad against the Ravens defense with Melvin Gordon. The fact that they're going to play that game at home, no less. They get the bye week. No, I don't think the Chiefs win a game because Andy Reid is so questionable in the playoffs, because they have that young quarterback, because they have no defense, because their run game sucks. There's a lot of reasons. The picture in the AFC is shaping up really well for the Patriots. Do I think they can beat the Saints? No. Saints are just a better football team. And again, I still don't think the Patriots are the best team in the AFC. I think they have a ton of holes too. The rush defense is atrocious. But I think the picture is just shaping up well. And who in the hell is picking against them in the playoffs? Who's picking against Brady and Belichick in the playoffs? One more ride, and then they're off into the sunset. But I do think the Saints win. I think Breeze gets his second and puts himself at that table as one of the greatest of all time to ever do it. Because it does take that second ring, and I think Drew Brees gets that this year. NBA Power Rankings. I did this 2 weeks ago. I went 10-1. I'm going to go 5-1 because I discovered while I was doing it that 10 is a lot of things to talk about. So instead, I'm going to go 5-1. Last week, I had this team check in at or 2 weeks ago, rather, I had this team check in at number 8. I considered leaving them out of the top 10. They are number 5 this week. It is the Denver Nuggets. Look, Nikola Jokic doesn't get a ton of MVP recognition. He needs to. The dude is a center averaging 18, 10, and 7. When you're averaging a double-double with 7 assists as a center, that provides insane spacing for your basketball team. It lets your shooters get active at the perimeter. It lets, especially when you're passing like that. Nikola Jokic is a bully in the low post, and he can just back somebody down and kick it out. I mean, it's incredible watching this guy play, what he's able to do. A lot of people hate on his defense. This guy's got to be an MVP discussion guy. And I know his defense isn't that good, but the way that he's got this team, the Nuggets are 21-10 with Isaiah Thomas, Gary Harris, Paul Millsap, and Will Barton all on the bench with injury. They're 21-10. That's insane. In the Western Conference, to be 21-10 with that many injuries, incredibly impressive. They're number 5. Number 4, the Toronto Raptors. Listen, Kawhi Leonard averaging 27 on 50% shooting, 38% from 3, and 85% free throws. Dude is having a year. Greg Popovich, watching this guy in San Antonio, has to be disgusted because there's no way Kawhi was hurt. This dude is healthy as hell. This dude is he might be the healthiest player in the league, and they're still giving him rest. They're first in field goal percentage. They're awesome at rebounding. They're awesome passing team. I think they're 4th in assists. The big question I have with the Raptors, they're not perfect either. Look, Kyle Lowry is classic for disappearing acts, especially in the playoffs. He went through a stretch this year where he just stank. Like, I think he was shooting 29%, 25% from 3. He was averaging like 12 and 10. And like the assist numbers are great, but dude, you can't shoot your team out of games like that. They were, I think, 3 and 5 in the stretch. Like, it wasn't a good time. And that's my worry is if you get to the playoffs and Kyle Lowry does what he usually does and disappears, I think the Raptors are in trouble, especially in Eastern Conference. The Celtics are coming up, the Sixers with Jimmy Butler. You look at the Pacers and the way Victor Oladipo has been playing now for 2 years. I'm ready to say Victor Oladipo is a top dog in the Eastern Conference. This is an Eastern Conference that's not as easy as it once was. Oh, by the way, there's another team that I didn't mention yet in the Eastern Conference that's coming up at number 2. But at number 3, it's the Oklahoma City Thunder. I had OKC at number 5 2 weeks ago. They just keep coming up. And I'll tell you the reason why. It's Paul George. Dude is having an MVP season. No one is talking about him. He's not going to win it because the way LeBron is playing in LA, that he's not going to overcome that type of media hype. Nobody talks about Paul George. Plays in a small market. He came from a small market in Indiana to go to Oklahoma City. Small market to small market. People used to call him LeBron or KD. He's the same type. He's not the same type of guy. He's a better defender than both of them. He's not the type of scorer, but he is an incredible scorer. He's attempting 9 threes a game and shooting 40%. Like, that is impressive, especially for a forward like Paul George, a guy his size, to be shooting almost 10 threes a game at a 40% clip is incredible. And it's really good for their efficiency. And again, he's a Defensive Player of the Year candidate. He's locking people down. The big part of why it's so effective, though, Russell Westbrook is actually deferring to Paul George. Russell Westbrook is the guy. He loves to be the guy. Loves to dribble the air out of the ball, make a ton of moves, play isolation, get to the basket, put up posters, all this other stuff. Russell Westbrook this year is actually deferring to Paul George in the clutch. Deferring to Paul George in crunch time. Letting Paul George be the guy. That is huge for the Oklahoma City Thunder. The bad side of Westbrook, though, is really worrisome for the Thunder. Westbrook's putting up 4.8 threes a game at just 24% shooting. 24% from 3. Historically, that is one of the worst shooting performances of all time. Only 4 players have ever shot that, including Westbrook. Kevin Love, 2012-2013, Aaron Harrison last year, and Vander Blue in 14-15. Those are the only guys in history that have put up at least 4.5 3-point attempts at 24%. I mean, it's awful. I think Kevin Love was the worst at like 21.3%, but the way Russ is just chucking this year is a little worrisome, especially if he at some point stops deferring to Paul George so much. It's going to be real bad. Good news for him, he's still averaging the triple-double, which little bit of stat padding, chasing rebounds on their way out of bounds, and once he gets to 10 assists, he's got to get to 10 points. But he is still averaging that triple-double, and he is still fairly efficient, despite the fact he's chucking at such an alarming rate. Number 2, it's the Milwaukee Bucks. They have the biggest scoring differential in the NBA. They are the most efficient offense in the NBA. They are the best rebounding team in the NBA. They have the one thing that they really didn't have a year ago, and that's three-point shooting. They played the Celtics the other day. Thon Maker was hitting contested three-pointers. Tony Snell was hitting contested three-pointers. Brook Lopez was hitting contested three-pointers. I mean, they are insanely efficient. And by the way, they have Giannis Antetokounmpo, who's another guy playing MVP basketball. He's been incredible. The Milwaukee Bucks, right now, to me, are the best team in the Eastern Conference. And that's even with the Toronto Raptors. To me, the Bucks are the team to beat in the East. The way that they've played the past couple weeks, the way that they've been hot, the way Giannis has played, it's been unreal. The way the efficiency that they've shown. And they're really good on the defensive side of the basketball too. They're the only team that's in the top 5 of both offensive and defensive efficiency. They are a really good basketball team. Then number 1, of course, you know what's coming. It's the Golden State Warriors. Listen, Steph Curry is having the best three-point shooting year of his entire career. 47% from 3. That's more efficient from the three-point line than he was in his MVP season. In the first ever unanimous MVP season in NBA history, he's more efficient from the three-point line this year. They struggle when Steph comes out. If Steph stays healthy, nobody's beating this team. If Steph can stay healthy, there is not a team in the league that can beat them. He's shooting 11 threes a night at a 47% clip. He's killing people. 11 threes a night, and he's making half of them. That means you're already down 15 points when you take the court. That's how good Steph Curry's been. And then, by the way, you have a guy in Draymond Green who's been an all-time facilitator this season. You have KD, who, when Curry's on the floor, defers the way Westbrook's been deferring. KD knows who the guy is now. And even though Klay Thompson is having a really bad year, they're overcoming it. You have, and by the way, they are the number 1 team in my power rankings, and Boogie Cousins hasn't even gotten on the floor yet. Now, people keep hoping that Boogie's going to ruin their chemistry, ruin the vibe in Golden State. Only time will tell, but I don't see it. I think they're just a really good basketball team. They're well coached. They're well run. They have a great owner. They have great general management. The front office is perfect. You got Steve Nash as a player personnel consult. It's the Golden State Warriors, the number 1. That's all I got for the Monday Mashup. Thank you for listening. Be back next week. I will be delivering a show from beautiful, sunny Costa Rica. I am heading to Costa Rica with the family for the Christmas holidays. Really excited about it, but I am committed to getting you content, so I will deliver a show from beautiful Costa Rica. I can't wait. Have a great week.